I guess I will transition to something I wanted to talk about because, like, although I am kind of late to this topic, but apparently there's a whole lot of hullabaloo or a lot of people talking about Phrolova. Well, I know that a lot of players are excited for Phrolova upcoming. The thing that I've been hearing, not as much, but like quite a lot before, is that they are kind of worried of how they will handle her redemption arc, because their worry is that like she will become a playable character, and then all of a sudden, what, she's now a good guy or something, or like how they will handle, her joining your side. They'll handle it badly in terms of story. But for me, honestly, I don't think we should really worry about it too much. I mean, we'll see what happens, but I don't think we need to worry about it. But like, what's been bothering me is like people comparing Prolova to characters in Hoyoverse games, because like when you think of like Genshin, there's like Scaramouche, and then Honkai Star Rail, there's Sunday. Like, just for what I've been seeing, people like comparing characters that, like, was like the one of the major antagonists for a storyline, and then all of a sudden they became a playable character. And oh yeah, Adventurine, I guess, is another example. But like, I'm like, why do you have to go all the way to like look at Hoyo games to make comparisons when we've had a game before with Kuro Games, which is Punishing Gray Raven? Because it has so many examples. Sure, maybe the story for the characters is sometimes a hit or miss with how they're a villain and then they become a playable character, so they have a redemption arc. But to be honest, I think Kuro Games does a pretty good job, especially with all of the freaking playable characters in PGR that are boss enemies or villains. So when, like, I remember when I saw Prolova being made into a playable character, I thought that this is something that we pretty much know that Kuro Games does, or at least I know as a Punishing Gray Raven player. And like the first character that comes to mind, especially when I think of Prolova. Wait, let me put this on. When I think of Prolova, the first character that comes to mind. So like Phrolova is like one of the leaders for the Fraxidus, which is like the major antagonist faction. If we look at Luna here from Punishing Gray Raven, so Luna is kind of one of the leaders for the Ascension Network, which is one of the major antagonists, because the Ascension Network is basically the force that controls the Punishing Virus. So when I saw Luna, like, you get like, she's one of the not one of the first bosses, but like she is introduced early on in the story as one of the bosses that you get to fight against. And then, like, as you can see here on top of me, this is the boss version, and then the one on the left side of the screen is the playable character version. And then, of course, she has phase 2, which is a lot more similar to how she looks now. And then, I mean, sure, like, you can say, like, she looks very, like, they are basically just using the same model, but, like, eventually we do get a upgraded playable version in the form of Luna Oblivion. So Kuro Games has a way of like introducing characters as villains, and then eventually, further developing their story, and then giving them like a buffed version, like Luna Oblivion over there. And then so yeah, like, they have quite the extensive history on characters that are bosses. So, for example, one of the very first bosses that we do fight against in Punishing Gray Raven is Alpha. when you first see her and her playable version, they're very similar to each other. Yeah. Now, as for the reason for her Alpha's background, she is an agent for the Ascension Network, but she's more of a gray line because she is working for the Ascension Network, but the reason why she's working for the Ascension Network is because of Luna, who is her sister, and she's trying to break her free from the Ascension Network. So at least there is some justification for Alpha especially, on how she's able to become a playable character right away. So I guess there is a lot of room for how the devs can make the story work. It really depends. But I think that they will be able to do a job. So, like, do that. If we continue down the list of bosses, we have here Roland, which bears a striking similarity to Scar from Withering Waves. That's why I'm kind of excited for Scar, but until now, since launch, we've known about Scar, but until now, we haven't seen any more of him. And Phrolova will be the first character from the Fraxidus that we're able to summon instead. And then this is his playable version over there. So he does get a bit of a change, but still, you can pretty much tell it's the same character. Then if we go further down the line, we have Rosetta, who's kind of like a centaur in a way. She has phase 1. Oh, nope, sorry. Phase 1, phase 2. And of course, the summonable version that we do get is more along the lines of phase 2. So again, another, like, now her story, I believe, is that the reason why we do end up fighting against her for a while is just because it's more of a disagreement between factions on how they want to handle, because right now the whole world is basically fucked because of the Panishi virus. So the different factions have different ways on how they want to handle it. I'm not very much of a lore nerd, but I just find it really cool that characters that we do end up fighting as bosses do end up becoming playable in future patches. While they're not outright evil, a lot of, some more evil than others, but most of the time it's usually they're along the lines of a somewhere in between, in the somewhere along the shades of gray, rather than just pure black or white, evil or good. And then we have Kamu, who's like an alter ego of one of the where is that? I forgot to mark his here we go. So there's like Kamui, and then Kamu here is his kind of like alter ego. And then eventually we do get Kamu as a playable character. So you can kind of see the similarities, but of course, as we get... That's also another thing, I guess, is like, I'm surprised that with Phrolova, we're pretty much... Well, at least from what we've seen, like, we are getting her one-to-one from the NPC version to the playable version. Of course, we do have the Hecate, who's kind of supposed to be a boss version of Phrolova, but not really. But still, I was kind of hoping that maybe the playable version we get would have some different look. But I mean, still, Phrolova's design is quite nice. And then if we continue further down, so you can see, and then we have Chu Shukra here. No, Chu. This is a different... So if we see Chu over there... Great, another character I forgot to mark down. There we go. So we do have the very similar designs with Chu Pavo. That's their name, Chu Pavo. So we have the boss version and then the playable version. But eventually, later down the line, we do get a upgraded version of Chu. in the form of Chu Shukra. So maybe Scar in the future. Maybe he'll get a glow up. Maybe, who knows? But then again, I feel like his gimmick, if we do end up getting him, he'll be like something similar to Cartethia, where he can transform probably. And then the list just keeps going. I'm gonna go through them one by one, and then we're back here with Luna. I will say I really love how varied the boss designs are, and Lamia is one of the more interesting designs for a boss, because when you compare her boss form, so she has form 1, form 2, and then when you compare her to when she is then released as a playable character, she gets a major glow up. She does have a coating though that kind of makes her resemble more of her ascended form, but you know, then eventually they do get crazy with all of the skins for her, so there's also that. But yeah, I feel like Lamia is one of the more interesting boss redesigns, if anything, honestly. And then we continue further down. Radiant Marcher, special mention to Radiant Marcher. He is a boss and one of the better designed, not just in terms of how he looks, but the gameplay design. A lot of fun to fight against this boss. He is a boss that we do have an event where he does become playable for a while, but he has not been made to a playable character that we can actually use outside of that specific event. I think we've only had that event like once or twice. Then he has a second form. It's just more of changes in his attack patterns. And then, of course, Primal Projection. I feel like Primal Projection is one of the better characters that has had their boss kit integrated into the playable character. And this is basically the playable character. It may not look it right now, but if you see her second version, it does more closely resemble it, kind of. But I mean, still. What's nice about this boss is that there are a lot of unique moves, especially when you get caught by some of the more powerful moves of Primal Projection here. You can actually pull off using Ishmael, which I think is a nice touch that they've added with Ishmael here. And then, Alyssa! One of the more interesting characters for sure, because she does, it's not just Alyssa, but she also has a stand called Echo. And you can also get her. Actually, she is a character that you can get for free from the game, which is also nice. So you can see here, we have Alyssa and Echo over there. And then, of course, kind of forgot to mention this earlier, but Alpha, one of the very first bosses that you do get to fight. So this is her. So of course, we do know, like, earlier we showed her original form here, and then eventually she gets an upgraded form, which can also be a boss. I think I just can't remember if we get the boss first or the playable character first. I think we get the playable character first, and then we get the boss, I think. Yeah, I think that's how it went. So there's Alpha. And Alpha is also one of those characters that keeps getting more and more costumes as the game progresses. Probably one of the most number of costumes in the game, I think. There are some costumes I think I'm missing. But anyways, yeah. Next up, we have Lilith. Lilith is one of the more recent bosses. If anything, the one major change with the boss is the legs, which I've heard a bunch of people say that they kind of wish that they kept the legs for Lilith. So here they gave her just standard legs. When I've seen people on stream say, "Aw, they should have just kept her original legs." At least gave her a more unique design. But hey, I'm okay. Lilith is one of the more entertaining characters, bosses, I will say. And then I believe... Alright, and then this last boss that I will show. Where is it? As you can see, sorry, not last boss, second to last boss. So we have Veronica here. Currently, we do not have a playable version in the game, but the recent CN livestream did announce that she will be one of the future characters that we will get playable. To be honest, I forgot to like search for it, so eventually we will be getting her. I guess yeah, the second form is kind of closer to what her playable form will be. I just think that her playable form will show more skin, especially in the thigh area. So anyways, there's that. And then I believe this should be the last boss, which is one of the more interesting bosses, especially if you play both Withering Waves and Punishing Grey Raven, which is Yuka. And she bears a striking resemblance to Chisa. That's why the moment when I saw her, like, I just, like, remembered when I saw her. I couldn't remember the name, but it was right there. And so, yeah. So, Yuka is one of the bosses that you fight in PGR. And what's nice about that boss fight is that while in the middle of the boss fight, for some reason, I don't remember the story reason, but for some reason, you end up being changed into her, and then you basically have a Yuka versus Yuka boss fight. So they basically gave a boss
Hello, my friend. Stay a while and
listen.
Raiders,
they gave a boss a moveset that the players can also use, but the thing is they haven't released her as a playable character until we see Chisa over there, who will become a playable Resonator in the future. So we've come full circle with Phrolova, and then eventually we will get Chisa. So, but yeah, I just wanted to put this in a video because I thought that, you know, a lot of people were saying like they were worried about Phrolova, but for me, honestly, the Kuro game has done a good job, I think, with character designs, turning bosses into playable characters, their story, I think. So I'm not that worried, but you know, there's always the chance. But for me, honestly, I'd rather, you know, get to the point where they release, experience the story, then we'll see what happens at that point. But yeah, I just wanted to put that out and turn it into a video. So it might feel a bit improv, because it kind of is. I just thought of it like on the spot as I was driving home, and then when I was driving home, I was just listening to stuff in the background. Then all of a sudden, this short plays, and then I was like hearing player, like, you know, somebody, I forget who, but it was basically people saying that, or somebody saying in a short that people are worried about Phrolova because how will they handle her redemption arc, because they were comparing to how previous gacha games handled their redemption arc to make them a summonable character, but then Kuro Games has been doing it way longer with PGR. So for me, I'm not worried. But yeah, if you've reached this point in the VOD on YouTube, thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye, YouTube.